Hi, this is Paula, and this is Whoever Holds the Stone, even though I'm very guilty sometimes of not being the stone holder and talking. I'm going to try to do better. I'm here with Richard and Celeste, and I wanted to talk. Celeste has done a lot of research. I mean, she's read slave diaries. She's done all this research into the slave experience, and I am not. I don't have that. I know a little, but a little sometimes is a dangerous thing. And so I invited Celeste to give me her thoughts on what I'm going to read to you right now. Last week I talked a little bit about Sapphira and the Slave Girl by Willa Cather, and I am disappointed in her as a writer, but there's some more stuff I learned that's even more disappointing. Okay, so based on Sapphira and the Slave Girl, Willa Cather believed that although slavery was wrong, it was defensible. Cather felt that black people were better off with the white families who owned them than they could be on their own. This is dismissing how Africans got over here in the first place, how they were denied education, how they were forced through physical threat to work under any conditions without compensation, and the psychological damage that this all did to them as an individual. Cather's family had owned slaves, and there were still servants in her home who were related to those slaves. She grew up believing that slave owners had relationships with the people they enslaved based on her own family's experience. It's impossible to extrapolate from one's own family experience to the whole economic system of slavery. Cather's book does depict the transport of an 18-year-old young woman on a ship where she was stacked naked like a mackerel in the hold of a ship, chained and forced to empty her bladder and bowels where she slept. Someone would hose out the area once a day. Somehow I did not catch a glimmer of humanity in the way Cather wrote this scene. It was vivid and horrifying, but there was no compassion, even though she was depicting the experience of an old dying woman, Jezebel, who was beloved by everyone in the community. I know that the fear of change is a strong deterrent even in modern life, but I find it difficult to believe that if a man was offered his freedom that he would decline. There's a scene where Henry Colbert offers to buy the freedom of his assistant miller, Samson. Samson chooses to remain a slave because he doesn't want to be separated from his family, which is legitimate in the short run, and because he will never have a better home than he has right now. That sounds to me like a defense of slavery as an ideal existence. This is hogwash. Cather does not paint white immigrants with the same brush. She sees them as having a rich culture and being brave enough to come to a new world for a better life. She sees them as being able to be assimilated just by virtue of their skin color. She sees dark-skinned people as other, even if some of her insights were a little ahead of their time. I was sure there were other white authors at the same time who had a more sympathetic and humanistic approach to the race issue. I asked AI for a list of those authors, but I neglected to include the word white. I got back a list of African American authors such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, and James Baldwin from the early to mid-20th century. I asked the more pointed question about white authors from that time period between the late 19th century to the early 20th century. I found Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852, and William Lloyd Garrison, who ran an anti-slavery newspaper called The Liberator in 1831. This was pre-Civil War. Where were the white voices between then and the 20th century? I found only two mentions for the early 20th century, Mary White Ovington and William English Walling, who were both journalists and social reformers. No novelist made the cut. Where were the voices of insightful writers who could see through the foggy morass to the truth about how African Americans were being treated? Systemic racism scares some white people. It scares them because they have to think about something that is uncomfortable, that they may have been a part of the problem. That's all I really got.
Is this still a work in progress?
Well, I was writing it specifically for the show because I wanted to talk about, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that there wasn't one novelist that AI could come up with that had a sympathetic and humanistic view of African Americans in that time period. What the fuck? What?
Well, a couple things, I think. One of the things I might say is, they might have an opinion, and that opinion wasn't suitable for their work. And maybe people who were interested in improving the conditions of African American life were not writers. They were advocates in other ways. Or there were writers who did not gain any kind of notoriety. Or they were writers who were smart enough to know they could not interpret the Black experience, especially the enslaved person.
Well, not just for interpretation, though. I'm thinking more for just being an ally,
Well, how popular was it? Up until very recently, and I mean the 20th century, in the United States, we still had sundown cities. A sundown city is where, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, to explain what it is so that people know who are watching.
There were communities that had practice or policy or tradition, call it what you want, that said once the sun goes down, there should be nobody Black in that town. Otherwise, your life is in danger. You could work there, but you have to get out, because you were not safe. Lynchings were popular, things that were cruel and inhuman. And those communities are fine. You can come in, you can work, you can do this, you can do that. But at a certain point in time, we just don't want you. And you better get the hell up out or pay a price, often a lethal price. So we had hundreds of sundown cities, most of them abolished in the 1800s on the books, because many of these places had sundown laws on the books. And even though in some places they may have been erased, the practice continued. And again, as recently as the 19th century, I want to say the 20th century, now that I'm thinking about a few communities, there were still places in the United States, not necessarily just the South either, that still carried the culture.
Well, one of Vanessa is saying that many Western New York communities until the 50s and 60s had, maybe they weren't on the books, but it was in practice.
Well, let me say, I have friends that live in some of the southern suburbs, and dear friends, white, Italian, Irish.
Yeah.
And depending on when, they'll tell me, okay, girl, it's time for you to get ready to go. Okay.
Wow.
Because I'm traveling on my own. So,
That's.
I guess it's interesting. It sort of speaks to your romanticism and idealism. That one, the magnitude of your surprise, that that there weren't literary giants that were speaking out in their own way about this. But I guess you know there were penalties for such things. When you think about, let's think about Uncle Tom's Cabin during the period of the Underground Railroad. There was a minister who was an advocate, an abolitionist, and he was imprisoned. He was in prison for 10 years, sentenced to 10 years for reading Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Reading it to himself or reading it aloud?
I don't know where he read it. He had the book, and I guess if you're in possession of the book, it was an offense.
Wasn't that covered under free speech or you know? I mean,
No. I mean, there's an assumption here that African Americans and persons who were enslaved were considered chattel,
yeah.
and anything that. Let's sort of back this up a little bit more.
Okay.
Emancipation Proclamation was an act by Abraham Lincoln to win the Civil War because they weren't doing so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And the Civil War, when they talk about it and needing the first 13th Amendment and the freedom of slaves, we had to connect commerce to that. Because the truth of the matter is, the South during those particular years, was doing very well economically.
Mm-hmm.
And the wealth of the South was in many ways subsidizing life in the North.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some of the thinking, let's talk Texas, for example, and other places that were thriving on rice, tobacco, cotton became king later. There were other crops.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, wait a minute. We making all the money. Why are we sending our profits, let's say tariffs, to support people in the North when we could support ourselves based on our own economic success?
Mm-hmm.
But that economic success was grounded in the labor of slaves.
Right.
So the only way to impact the economy was to break the chain.
Mm-hmm.
And they had individuals who, in fact, this is a project that I'm researching now that I'm talking to you, that were engaged in espionage, African Americans who enslaved, who were recruited by people who wanted to the Union to win the Civil War, and B, they were indeed had a more humanistic approach to African Americans because the plight of the Black in the North and the Northeast did not really resemble the plight in the Midwest and the South.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like two different, worlds.
Right.
So after the Civil War and up until, I don't know, 60s, 70s or so, the notion of African Americans being incapable of being independent, continued and continues in some places
Mm-hmm.
to be part of a belief system.
Right.
So for Willa Cather, having that history in her family, even though she may be clearly a fine and notable writer, I would not have expected her to have an alternative view.
Well,
And the fact that she writes about relationships that are platonic suggests that she got some other issues happening. Okay. And while it's nice to write about those friendships, this particular novel is about a woman who is an invalid one way or another, has some kind of disability.
yeah.
And as a result of that, her family or her whoever decided to marry her off to a guy because that was the way that it was.
Yeah.
That
She
in
was
those
she
times, women
yeah,
were
she wasn't disabled at the time of something's feeding back. We're, Richard, you're
I stopped
yeah.
it.
Okay. So she was not disabled when she married him, but she's the one who owned the slaves, and he was not a slave owner. And the her desire to keep the slaves was a big negative in their domestic tranquility.
was from. I mean, from what I understand, he stayed at the mill, right?
Yes, he stayed
He
mostly.
didn't even live in the same house with her.
No, he didn't. But at the end of the book, when she was dying, he became closer to her and started. I mean, she became. I mean, she was not a likable character throughout the entire book.
Right.
But, however, she, he had more sympathy for her as she was dying, and he moved. I don't know if he didn't really actually move back into the house, but he spent more time at the house with her. But I mean, it wasn't only her own particular inhumanity that was problematic. It was the whole depiction of the people, and I guess I am not a realistic person. I am not. I live on the planet Paula. Everything's nice there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's hard for me sometimes when I butt my head up against facts. you know?
Yeah.
So, but
Well, I think one of the things for sure, and I really want to take a look at Toni Morrison's assessment because I'm sure she had some, as you mentioned, explicit things to say in terms of the narrative
yeah,
and in terms of the character flaws of the writer and the characters and the depiction. We have to appreciate that it took a lot during the period of the Underground Railroad and forward. It takes a lot of compassion and conviction, if you will, to stand on behalf of something that's not considered the ideal. I mean, the greatest tragedy for me when I think about the Republic is what's happened to the indigenous people. These are people who were here long before anybody from Europe showed up.
yeah,
And they've been denigrated and relegated. And
yeah.
I know a friend of mine said maybe they'll take the country back nickel by nickel, which,
Yeah, that it's a little, it's too little, too late. But I think that that was definitely that was the beginning of our country. That was the worst. But with the European mindset at the time, they truly believed that they were bringing, the Native Americans' religion and smallpox. So
among other things.
yeah, well,
But that's that pandering,
Yeah.
pandering of superiority.
yes,
That their relationship to nature, their relationship to, and I get it. You come in here all high and mighty, and making life worse with your monotheistic perspectives, and even then, I mean, if you want to take it all the way back with, creating monotheistic thinking in ancient Egypt, away from where they used to be,
right,
they were still one with nature. Like you don't own land, you share land. You don't take more from it than what you need. These were, and this is not to say they weren't warring tribes and all the rest of that, but it wasn't just this unfounded hatred I guess is the
Yeah.
is the best way that I think about that. So Willa Cather, she was writing about these things that suggest that she had her own dysfunction and her own unresolved issues, and she was writing about things that she may have wished for, had thought ideal. To write books and books about relationships that are.
She was actually
either,
living with a woman for the last, I think, 30 years of her life. She had a romantic relationship with a woman.
All right. So she's suggesting, that even though she's in this caring relationship, something is wrong because she keeps writing about people that don't engage in any physical acts of desire.
Not all of her characters were like that, but
Okay.
there were main like you've got several different couples in the books that are interrelating, and one of them, they're usually childhood friends that grow up together and separate and then come back together, and and have this long-term relationship. And I really value that perspective, because in my life I've had those male relationships that did not involve anything except friendship, and there's a lot of people that don't. I mean, I couldn't have married somebody that wouldn't have honored my male friendships.
Right. I can appreciate that.
And Greg
certainly.
has women friends too, and that's important to both of us. So we're that's one of the reasons I've always admired her, and her language. Yes, florid, but lyrical. There's a lyricalness to her descriptions.
I'm sticking with floor because I was guilty of it, and that's how I learned the word and what it meant, what it is. Because it was like, slow down, Celeste. You're like overkill.
Yeah, I know, and it's the poet in you. You see things differently, and you want to describe how you see it to the world because other people don't see that way.
Yeah. And you want to share things, and you want to create the pictures, but one of the things I have learned over the years is trying to write about something that you imagine versus something that is different. Is very different.
I agree with that, and that's why I fear fiction. Although I imagine lots of things. If I was just writing a nursery story, I could certainly come up with something immediately. But to flesh out characters and to make them human, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that.
You probably could, but it can be a painful thing, trying to make them all make sense and, interrelate, if that's your point.
Yeah.
Or the way you could just, make characters, and that's okay too. But it would be very difficult. You'd have to have in my opinion, a very high level of empathy to write about something that you're not familiar with. Like you wrote about your Polish story, right? I can understand that, but could I write that from an honest perspective?
Right. Yeah.
Probably not. And I think the upsetting thing, when you have authors like Willa Cather and others, because she's the topic of writing about an experience based on supposition and mythology and all these other kind of things. And the Black experience and the Native experience or the immigration experience, as portrayed by Western civilization, is always tilted, stilted, and wrong. Because you're operating from a point of beliefs that don't hold water. Just don't hold water.
Your worldview is different than the people who
Very
are
different. And then trying to, say, oh, well, these are uncivilized people. These are savages. Well, not really, because the basis of how you're living, let's talk about mathematics. Let's talk about medicine. Let's talk about architecture. These are, ancient things that we discovered along the way. And now you don't want to give them credit or
Yeah.
pretend like it didn't happen or whatever. I mean, having slaves during this time of building the Constitution, designated as not a whole person, but 2/5 of a person, so that the landowner could have more to vote. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, it's insanity. It's insanity, and
Right.
we have to own it as a country. We have to own it.
Yeah, well,
and-
that ain't happening because they're trying to go back to it, right? And I mean, this whole notion of the happy slave, and let me say this: I'm not saying that there was never a slave who did not stay on a plantation after emancipation.
No, I know
And-
that that's the case, right?
Right. And so there could have been a lot of different reasons. It could have been, you were terrified because you could still be hunted down.
Fear of the
Let's
unknown,
just-
yeah, and just,
Right. Fear of the unknown. And depending on your age and stage.
and such
know.
such a limited worldview, and then thinking about that branching out into the unknown, it's
Oh,
terrifying.
it wasn't unknown. It was known. You leave up out of here, anything can happen to you.
Right.
And anybody who wants to do something to you can.
Yeah.
That's not the unknown. That's well known.
Right, but
It's a dangerous thing.
Right, I'm saying I'm sure they were aware of that, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
living on a farm for your entire life and trying to imagine Chicago, or
Well, it wasn't. Chicago was more farm.
yeah, but I'm
They could
saying,
live on a farm doing really well. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
And then the flight to freedom, if they were going to where they thought they had more community, which is one of the reasons why Canada and in the North is so important. They could imagine that if anybody were able to say, I can go to a place where I will not be subjected to cruelty by the minute, I'm going.
absolutely, that was
Right.
my thought in reading this thing about this Samson
so if they
guy.
were staying,
Yeah.
it's really because maybe they didn't have the physical capacity, or maybe their environment was such that, like people deliberately put themselves in jail. What do they call it? 3 hots in a cot, because they're homeless and they pretend to be
Dangerous.
or make themselves
Yeah.
criminals, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, depending on your level of desperation and how you
That's true.
feel about that, right?
Yeah. So
Why would some people go through the Underground Railroad? Why would do you remember the era of the Vietnamese boat people,
yeah, why would they do that?
right?
Yeah,
And we had the Haitians crossing.
and even
We
people
have
from
people
Cuba.
coming from Cuba.
Yeah.
I mean, they're risking their lives, and because they're desperate to have some other kind of humanity associated with their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Warshon Sire, a British poet who's an escape. I think the first line of her poem is, "Why would anybody leave home unless home was the mouth of a shark?"
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. So,
just moving to a new
it-
country has to be an incredible, fearful experience.
Yeah. Especially if you got nothing there,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
wanna-
And I think, Willa Cather in this story, the outrageous level of jealousy
Oh, for
Right.
Nancy, yeah, she was,
for Nancy.
and Nancy was an innocent girl, and her husband was a decent man, and yet she was just like so
she
angry.
was, she was writing about some kind of psychosis,
Yeah,
and creative people do that. They take one thing and they exploit it to the 10th power, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what oftentimes movies are made up. Movies are made up of a point in time, exploited as far as it can go,
Right.
right? And you have to have imagination for that. And you have to be willing to surrender to your own darkness. Otherwise, you'll
We
never
were
be
just
able to do it.
Richard and I were talking about this, about the Jungian, so embracing your dark side. That doesn't mean that you capitulate to it. It just means that you understand it and you accept it. You
Yes.
know. So what were we talking about?
The quote, you have to go through the darkness in order to find the light. So
Yeah.
don't curse the darkness.
Yeah, don't right. And that and Christianity, we're always, the darkness is here and we're trying to be here, but it's got to be something that works together. You've got to know about your dark places in order to be a fully, what does he call it? What does Jung call it? Actualized human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, or as Dolly Parton said, no rain, no rainbow, right?
What a wise woman.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
but
I wanted to pull Richard into this. We've left him out for the last half hour. So
oh, sorry.
so I know, but I was enjoying your insight, and I want to make sure that Richard gets some time here. What do you have on your list today?
My life experiences.
Okay, I'd love to hear them.
Tony the truck driver has dissolved his friendship with Vanessa.
Oh,
For many months, whenever Vanessa did something he didn't like, he wouldn't say anything.
yeah.
Instead, he would internalize it.
Okay.
Yesterday, all the stored resentment in him boiled over. And today I've been talking to both of them. Vanessa sees it as being abandoned. Tony sees it as something necessary for his mental health.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that.
Yeah.
But sometimes if sometimes you have to just let go of people. Sometimes people have to want to help themselves. You can't save anyone. That job is up to them. You can assist them. You can help them.
I'm going to say I agree with you, except there's a couple things. If you're having issues with somebody and you don't have, it's cowardly not to confront that.
But
There's ways that you
Yeah.
can do it without, I mean, that's like the story, the man who goes to the store and never comes back.
Oh yeah,
That's-
yeah. That
Right? That's
I
cowardly.
I have a friend whose husband left her after 25 years, and he won't even tell her why.
Exactly.
And
That's so,
right. So you
that's
need to
cruel.
you need to have, and I tell people this all the time. If you hold things inside, they fester. If they fester, you're going to lose your affection or respect for the person that
Right.
that you have to say it right away. What you said hurt my feelings, and I want you to know that. That's my go-to.
yeah.
You made me. That was a statement that made me feel bad, and I want
Yeah.
you to know that, because if I don't tell you that, I'm going to be angry with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to be cruel. You don't have to be mean, but you can say, you know what? I can't do this. I'm not doing this. And you can go forward and say, and this is why, as you say, it's upsetting. I don't
Yeah.
believe it.
And this-
or you can just start dialing back. But, so I agree with you that I see both points, but I'm inclined to be more cranky with the truck driver who did the, ghosting. I ain't with the ghosting. You know,
You gotta,
the least you can do is say
you know, and
goodbye.
how many times did you, Richard, have sit downs here at the house with people who were having a disagreement? So many times. You were the intermediary or just the person who oversaw the conflict, and that's what people need to do. And so I think that effective communication is so difficult for some people because they don't
Yes.
know how to express their needs, and they don't
Yeah.
know how to ask for things because they're damaged. They've
Yeah.
got problems in their past and they've been rejected. So
Yeah.
you can't. It's hard to ask. And I mean that this was a perfect opportunity for a sit down.
That's what I tried to
Because,
arrange.
yeah.
I couldn't.
I'm sure you
couldn't
did.
arrange it, but Tony gave me a whole long list of things that were frustrating to him about Vanessa. And
Did you give that list to Vanessa?
well, I said to Vanessa, I said, I finally have heard his side of the story. Do you want to know these things that he found frustrating? And Vanessa, yes, because I'm in the dark. I want to know.
Yeah, I would too.
So that's what I've been exchanging with Vanessa. You know, this point, this point, this point. You know.
Yeah.
But does she have her list? Was she being tolerant of the truck driver in any way?
Yeah, I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
Right. Knowledge is fine. Yes. So Vanessa, did you have things that
Yeah,
that were bothering you? I had a similar situation with a friend who sent me an alphabetical list of everything that I did wrong. She included everything, including Z, and she never told me these things out loud, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then I got this letter, and it terminated our friendship. I mean, she terminated our friendship.
Oh! It wasn't. I want to talk about these
No.
things. It was.
No, this is why I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that means you don't even have a say.
So, but in retrospect, now that I've gotten older and a little wiser, she was right about a lot of those things. I did.
But did you have your list of how you were managing that relationship as well?
I did have things on that list. She was compulsively late, which I found very annoying. But I always told her, I always said, I can't deal. I'm going to meet you there because I can't wait. I want to be. I'll be there and I'll meet you there. That kind of stuff. But I always confronted it. But she just had and all these things I wasn't aware of. But I think back to the things on that list, and I was kind of an asshole. I had anger issues. I would explode at the least provocation. I mean, there were things that I was doing that were wrong, but I didn't know I didn't know they had any effect on anybody. I didn't know they were wrong because that's how I had developed, So she was right, but I didn't see it then. I didn't see.
Do you think it's a good idea to periodically say to your friend, what can I do to improve the quality of our friendship?
It would be nice if we could practice communication to that high level, Richard. but I didn't even know there were friendship rules until I met Greg, and he told me, he says, "Oh, you can't spend time with me? Then I am going to have to downgrade you to acquaintance."
That's my man. I tell you.
And I
So
said,
let me put it to you like this.
I said, I don't want to be an acquaintance. And he said, then you have to spend time with me. And I said, okay. He read me the rules. He told me the rules. I didn't know there were rules.
Yeah, there's rules to everything. We just have to know what they are.
I know.
Right?
And for each person, it's different too,
And for each person, it's different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I hope they could resolve their differences because I know that they were having a lot of fun when they were doing things together. Mm-hmm. Be nice if they had to sit down. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And let it move beyond. I mean, because the first one, that sounds like a justice training where, the first sessions is just a lot of piss, bitch, and moan. And then you move beyond that into how can we better understanding, or what they call is ZOPA, zone of potential agreements, and be able to build upon that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a friendship worth saving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So.
I just, I guess I think to myself, if I would have, and it's such a cliche, if I know then what I know now, I would not, I could have done these things differently. I could have accomplished this, but it's a process, it's the evolution of the self. And some people just never get past some people, come from a really crappy childhood and they just abuse everybody until they die and they never figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is sad, and that is true. And there's a guy, he has a travel program. I want to say Joseph Resenda or something like that on public television.
Stephen.
No, not him.
Oh, not him. Okay.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He does sort of luxury travel. This Resenda guy, I'm trying to remember. He said travel is a thing that can break down all the barriers to discrimination and all these kind of. I wish I could quote him better. I'm going to look it up and I'm going to send it to you. His name is Joseph Resenda. I'm trying to remember. And when he travels, he goes into the village. He doesn't go to the spa. He tries to get into the parade. And sometimes I think it's a little bit too liberal, but I get his point. And he's trying to live that life that you wish Willa Cather was living.
Well, I think there's something to be said for the National Geographic vacation, where you don't go to the exclusive American hotel that's gated community, and you go into the villages and you meet people and you talk to them, and that's how I like to travel. I have my best experiences with travel talking to local people who just happen to know a few words of English, because I don't know a few words of anything.
Yeah. And I know when I went to the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, and that was some time ago, Hillary Clinton was the first lady. And up until that point, I had really, having grown up in Europe, I had that experience. But now as an adult, having the American experience by people who weren't all about America was so unique that women at that time, and I didn't really know the truth about this. And this is interesting when you start learning the truth about yourself and who you are. And they would say, well, America's a bully, and if you don't do what they say do, they're going to declare war on you. And I thought to myself, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever. But guess what? It was true.
I know.
We're imperialistic, colonialist, all these things, and it was so hard for me because I was there as part of a group to talk about cultivating opportunities for women to learn who were in restricted environments where learning was more or less prohibited.
Right.
And so we're busy, talking about these communities that are, under such strict cultural traditions that you want to help them actualize in a different kind of way. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they look at you and say, "But you're the enemy. How you going to help somebody when you're problematic?"
I'm not America.
And,
I'm not. I'm not America. I'm an individual.
And you have to really make that point. I mean, they were burning Ronald McDonald, big effigies of Ronald McDonald being burned, and other kinds of, images, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism. multinational corporations taking advantage of underdeveloped or poorly developed nations. I mean, we're like a rogue in the world.
Yeah. Well, no, I do know that. I mean, it's a little embarrassing sometimes, especially now. It's like,
It's very embarrassing
Yeah.
now. I talked to some people who had, well, some is an exaggeration, couple people who had kids who were, I may have said this before, thinking about coming to America for a soccer scholarship and changed their mind and went to Spain. And I said, oh, you're not coming to the United States? And they're like, oh, no, you people kill your children. They were like, mm-mm.
yeah. I
No.
would be afraid to send my kids. I mean, I have grandchildren in school. I'm worried about them.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, my grandson, they have lockdown drills now. And this district will call. But I thought, we now have to, we're not protecting ourselves from bombs where we had hide
Hiding under the desk. Like that was
Right.
going to help.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you have to worry about snipers,
Yeah, I know.
So I appreciate it. And I thought to myself, well, if I was living in another country, and even though it was a great Ivy League school inviting my son or grandson to the United States for a soccer club, I'm going to Spain too.
Well, I'm working.
I'm not sending them. I wouldn't send my kids here voluntarily.
I'm
anymore.
working. I was assisting a Korean couple and getting their Social Security card, and this is the job that I have now, and so I asked them just out of curiosity. They spoke pretty good English, and I said, "What were some of the preconceptions you had when you were coming to this country?" And the first thing she said was, "Too many guns. Too many guns.
Yes.
It's very scary. Too many guns." And I said, "You're right.
Yes.
You're right. It's very scary
Yes.
for even the people that live here."
Yes.
You know,
And we
but
won't do
she
anything about
she
it.
really thought she was going to see Americans walking around with holsters, with guns.
Well, we're not that far away from it.
Well, I lived in Arizona. That is an
Yeah,
open carry
okay.
state. There are people
Yeah.
riding motorcycles with big handguns stuck in the back of their pants when they're like leaning
Yes.
over their bike, no helmet.
Yeah.
That's really
Yes.
smart. Yeah, I'd love to see that gun go off. If he hits a bump.
That happened to a famous basketball player.
Did it really?
He went to a nightclub, and a gun went off. It was in his pocket.
Oh, God. Did he shoot his foot or
Yikes.
something?
I don't remember that, Celeste, when that happened.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had to look it up
Yeah.
because it was like weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's crazy. That is, why do you need a gun in a nightclub? I mean, honestly.
They're walking around. I think about, and she's no longer the prime minister or the premier anymore, with the woman from New Zealand.
Oh, God, she
Prime
was
Minister.
so brave, that woman.
She was brave and she was brilliant and she was successful. They had one incident and she was like, oh no, we're not doing this in my country.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
The anvil came down and that was that.
They picked up all the guns.
picked up all the gun. Like I say, that was that.
It's
She was like, we're not doing this.
Absolutely.
And, we don't have the compassion to do that. It's not even about courage.
Yeah.
It's really about,
Yeah. Well,
here's my thought on how
the
that
bottom
thing
line
works.
is money. That's what the bottom line is.
Money and a sense of control, power and control, like power to protect myself one way or another. And it's kind of like the mythology of segregation. This notion of segregation, people say they they're against it, or the ones that say we should keep it, they don't really want segregation because we had it and it was destroyed. It was destroyed in Cottonwood. It was destroyed in Tulsa. Black communities were thriving in their own part of town. They had their own bank,
Oh,
their own store,
absolutely.
their own this, their own that. They were segregated. They were away from you and doing well.
And you went in and you blew them up. I
Right.
mean,
So segregation is not what you want, right? Because
Right.
you had it and you destroyed it. What you really want is to have power and dominion over people that you believe are less than you are, or you want to set yourself up as superior to who they
Right.
are.
and one of the things that I read in Caste was about how the immigrants, the white immigrants that were coming from Italy or Poland or wherever, they had no preconceptions of black people. The
Yeah.
only reason they fell into that whole system was because they needed somebody, they wanted to fit in with the established community, and they needed to be greater than somebody else.
Yes.
So they didn't carry that over from their country. They developed it after they got here. We suck
Yeah.
at this. We really
Yeah.
do. That's that.
That need to be superior
Yeah.
for no reason, right? And I love you dearly. I love Richard. I love you. I love Greg. But y'all ain't superior, right?
I'm certainly not superior
You know,
to you.
we're all in the same ocean at the same
we're-
level. You know
right.
what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
And we have different gifts. You have a gift. Richard has a gift. I have one. We all have something to offer.
And yeah. See, I don't even. I guess I do understand that some people their ego is so fragile that they need to put other people down in order to feel that they're above them, so that they feel good about themselves. But
Yeah.
I don't. I that's a psychological problem. You need some pills or something.
Yeah. Well, you know, it goes to the effect because, you know, a lot, I don't say all black people, I say a lot of black people, and I'll be one of them, get so annoyed when someone says, and they're trying to be sincere, but, you know, missing the point. Well, what can we do? What do we need to do? And I say, you asking me? You need to talk to your community. You need to talk to your people because it's your community and your people with the problem. I can't help you with your problem. That's the thing you need to come to terms with. So when you see your cohorts and colleagues or family members or whatever coming out of pocket in terms of, you know, bias, genderism, whatever it's going to be, then you speak up.
Yeah. People,
That piece that's bothering you, then you speak up.
but here we go again with the idea that so many people are afraid to communicate those ideas because they don't want to be the other. They want to fit in with whoever. You can't. If everybody
No, you can't.
everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong.
That would be true.
You know, you're not
That
going
would be true.
Right. You're not going to make everybody happy. It's just not going to happen. And
No.
to be able to voice those opinions and be the voice of sanity in that room, it takes a little bit of bravery, but what else are we going to do? Go along with it?
Well, sometimes people say, you know, it's easier to hate than to love. So it's a very sad thing when you're trying to, you know, that's why I'm really impressed with these marches that are happening.
Yeah, me too. I loved it. It was so fun.
Yep. Listen, we can't change policy. We
No.
can only hope to encourage the politicians and the policymakers to change.
Did you see what Trump, the meme that the AI video that Trump did
How
to
childish.
against the No Kings rally? He had a guy. He was driving a plane and he dumped.
Oh yes, and he had the crown on.
And he had the crown out and he dumped crap all over
The poop plane.
Yeah, the people that he's supposed to be serving, he is shitting on. Well,
I guess the question here for me is,
yeah.
right, what made, really, it's not like he hasn't been president before, right?
Right.
What in the world made anybody think that he was universally compassionate about anything? Why would you think that? Nothing about his life says that. Nothing about his actions say that. I mean,
it's a mob mentality.
You bought the Jack and the Beanstalk beans, right?
It's it's a mob mentality. Your friends and your neighbors and everybody that you know believes that, and so you believe that no matter what comes out in the news that shows you that you're wrong. You will never, because that's all because you think it's lies. You think it's bullshit. You think that everybody else is lying to you except these fringe news sources and your fringe neighbors who are undereducated, to say the least.
Yeah. You know, talking to memes, they had somebody put something out today, and I'm trying to remember it. Who was the president that went to The Hague for, was it the former president of Venezuela or one of those countries?
Oh, I saw something on the news.
You saw that? And they were in a similar pose and said that this guy was arrested and went to The Hague for killing suspected drug dealers. We're doing the same thing.
Oh, well,
suspected.
No, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking about the one guy that was in prison. He was a ruler, and I don't remember who it was. He was a ruler, and he was talking, and he said, President Trump and I have so much in common. I went to prison, and he almost went to prison. And Trump...
Oh, well, this is worse. This is an actual guy. His name was Duerte, Duarte. Oh, Lord.
You ring a bell? Duarte? Something or other. That sounds a little familiar.
Yeah, South American. I want to say Venezuela, but anyway, you have to go on Facebook. You'll find it. I don't know who posted it, but it was like, well, yeah, we're doing random dropping bombs on people, 47, 57 people so far. We have no evidence.
And we don't.
What they were doing.
Why aren't we going and getting those boats and proving that there's drugs on them? What is stopping us from taking the ruins and showing that there's no drugs. This is not drugs. This is
we're being run by people who pull wings off flies. You know.
They're killing innocent people in boats. That's all.
Yes.
That's all they're doing.
No evidence, and that's how this guy, this particular former president or premier, how he ended up being arrested and going to The Hague for doing exactly this same thing.
I hope they have
And the meme in question was like, well, if this guy got arrested and went to The Hague, how come we're not, responding in kind?
Well, now Marjorie Taylor Greene is now on our side.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah, I mean, for her.
And guess who else was against this thing? Paul Rand.
I know.
I never thought I'd see the day.
Yeah, I know. So there's maybe we're getting to the point where some braver Republicans are going to start standing up. I don't know. It seems like
I don't know either.
It seems like it should be.
I've never seen such a collective bunch of spineless jellyfish in my life.
It's embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's embarrassing, and I'm sickened by it. But we're almost done now, but I'm glad you came on, Celeste. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for inviting me. Are you on every Monday? I'm not really sure when you.
Yeah, every Monday, 7:00-ish. 7:00-ish.
Okay.
So you're welcome anytime you want to come. You're certainly welcome to join us. And now it's counting down. Thank you,
Well, you got
everyone.
to email me or text me or something like that.
Okay, I will. All right. So
'Cause I said, oh, she's not doing it anymore.
no, I just haven't. I skipped a couple weeks of guests. Okay, I think we're off the air, but.